Hey, it's KR from D&D Homebrew, and today I'm going to talk about tips on how to make the dialogue of your NPCs interesting and colorful and to the point and conveying the information you want without boring your players or feeling stress upon yourself to become something you're not. Because here's the thing. People will talk about, I play in a Pathfinder camp, and I hear critics go, oh, there's no role playing. It's all just roll your diplomacy, roll your perception, roll your deception, and then we never talk. Well, of course, it's not true at all. No game that I've ever played of Pathfinder, I played quite a few now, anyone ever did that. Constant role playing. That's what a role playing game is. Yes, there are subsystems and there's rules for all sorts of things that you can utilize after somebody has role played. But you are talking to people in the world. You are talking to monsters, sentient monsters, and you are talking to the humanoids that live in all the settlements all the time. So if you're a GM, of course, you're responding to the players, entreaties to people and questions and, overhearing conversations, whatever it is, all the time. And this is not about voice. I did a video on voices. Interesting. It was one of my biggest duds. I thought it was quite good, but whatever. This is about just how do they talk to the players? How do you do this in a way that conveys the information one the NPC would know, that they would tell them, but just crafting this dialogue itself? Because there are some rules that, if you've ever done any creative writing or written scripts or plays or anything like that, there's rules on dialogue, how it, what is good and what is not. And so one of the things you want to avoid is long-winded type speeches, right? Unless you and your players are really into this, if they go into the tavern and the tavern keep says, "Ah, gentlemen, it's so good to see people from this wonderful in our town of Rivendell, where the rivers flow and everything," and he just goes on and on and on. Unless you're portraying him, you do this one time to portray him as this long-winded bore guy, but then you never do it again, right? Just be careful. Everyone doesn't have to speechify. Everyone doesn't have to make long-winded. Just, "Gentlemen, what can I do for you?" "Oh, well, like a beer?" "Certainly." And then whatever. And then they say, "Hey, we're looking for so-and-so." Okay. And now you can either just say, "Nope, don't know the name," or "never heard of them." Or you could say something like, "Well, why do you ask?" Because if this guy's a friend of so-and-so, people just come into a bar looking for someone in a world where people are carrying weapons around, like the Old West. You don't just give out someone's name, right? If you ask for someone, and first of all, they may say no, and then go tell so-and-so, "Hey, these guys are looking for you. They're over at my tavern." Or send off the kid, the barback kid, to go warn the guy. And you can just have him go, "I've never heard of him." And then if you're in a system, can I make a deception check on that or whatever it is? And you think he's lying. He knows that guy. Or they already know in advance. So, but it shouldn't be a long-winded thing. It should just be, and again, people, you see this on some of the, live action YouTube or Twitch or whatever, and there's a lot of, it seems like extraneous dialogue. Well, if you watch the good ones, it's not. It's not. A lot of the dialogue is them joking back and forth to one another, whether you like that or not. But when the good GMs have someone talk, it's very short and concise and to the point. It isn't long-winded. Another thing is to have the dialogue match the NPC. Who would be the boastful, long-winded person? The mayor of the town. They go on and on and on. Whereas the blacksmith is not going to be loquacious unless you decide that's going to be their unique thing, is that they go on and on and on. A long time ago, there was a show called Green Acres, and they had this guy that was like a field agent for the government who never stopped talking and never made any sense and just always got confused and everything. And it was a funny character. You can only take it so much in real life, right? So you may have a character like that. But typically the blacksmith is just going to be, "What do you want? I'm busy. Yes." "Did anyone bring a horse through here at the livery stable?" Again, you could do the who's asking or whatever, but he should be gruff, and then when he does answer, "Yeah, think about what he would say about that horse. That guy should have had that horse taken away. Those shoes hadn't been shod in weeks. It's a shame to treat an animal that way." Something like that. So then we get a sense this guy, especially if they're like bandits and stuff, you always imagine that, but they might not be. Oh, they took really good care of themselves. They had some nice armaments. Because this guy's, maybe he's a blacksmith that also is an armorer or whatever. I'll tell you one thing, their armor was nice. Didn't say much, just rode out of town. Okay, the players have some information. And it's short and to the point, and it's something he would know, the blacksmith. Right? The hotel keeper knows about the way people, they were up all night carousing in that room. Don't like customers like that. Hope you're not like that kind of thing. Right? And everybody, I have all my, what do you call it, typical things I use. So you're hearing all these same voices, right? We all have those things. But again, what would they be interested in and how would they speak? And again, you are in a world where people are carrying weapons. As I said, it's a dangerous world. So most people are not going to be they're not going to be unhelpful because people love to talk about what they know about, but they're going to do it in a cautious way. So they're not going to say, that is an evil person that you should watch out for. They say stuff like, oh, people say you got to be careful around that guy. I'm not saying anything. I'm just telling you that, and then okay, that person's, we got to watch out for that person. Because people will protect themselves, but they do like to talk. So don't make them just clam up, unless there's a reason. But think about how they would speak based on their position in your world. So one of the old saws about creating dialogue is to avoid yes-no answers. Do you know about the Duke who lives in that tower? Yep. Well, okay, now I got to ask again. What's the deal with him? So you'll say yes or no, and then give us a little information, again, related to what they know. So does that Duke live up in the castle? Oh, yeah, he's lived there a long time. I actually knew his father. Now, there was a great man. It's too bad. Too bad. Well, I don't want to speak ill of anyone. I've got things to do. But, the old man, he was a nobleman. He earned his keep. Okay, so we know the new Duke is not so great. This guy's not saying much, but he's telling us something, and he's doing it in relation to his experience because he's older of seeing the Duke's father. Another thing that's, can be somewhat tricky is to provide subtext in which people don't say exactly what they mean, but it's underneath what so someone isn't necessarily going to say, we don't trust you. We don't trust your group. So especially I don't trust you because that could be provocative. But the thing they could say is, we don't get many strangers around here. A lot of people don't like strangers. I'm not saying I don't. He doesn't say that. That's all he says. People don't like strangers. And then the players will go, really? Why is that? Now, the guy clams up. You could do that if he's nervous. But it's more interesting to say, well, ever since those guys came into town and caused all that trouble a few years ago. Really? And again, because they're interested in telling this. But again, so the players start questioning, and then they go, well, wait a minute, who do you know? Do you know someone here? They might start questioning them and realize, well, I'm speaking to these strangers, and people don't like strangers. This is where the players, if they're smart, might give a little money. The point is, you don't just go, yeah, go on through, or wait a minute, we don't like your kind, get out of here, whatever. They have some give and take and have some subtext underneath. The subtext is, we don't like people because we had a bad incident, but it starts off, we don't get many strangers around here, that kind of thing. So it's, well, obviously there's some reason. Or we don't, again, we don't like them. You can say that, but it's better to think this through in terms of the subtext of it. I've said this before with dialogue. It's always good to add a little humor into it, to add a little sarcasm potentially or whatever, so that if you have an NPC and the players have been beat up, they haven't had time to heal or whatever, say something like, boy, it looks like you guys have had quite a successful expedition or something. Looks like you could really use a drink or something like that. Or, if you have a player character who's very wisecracky or the face or whatever, what happened to that loudmouth fella? We'd love to hear more of his stories, or something sarcastic, right? Where they interact like real people do. And again, you can go too far with it. I've had players say, well, I'm an 8th level guy. They would never say that to me because I'm going to cut his head off. Well, I'm like, well, maybe. You're going to get in trouble if you do that. But you see, I like to have where they banter with the players a little bit, like we do in real life, especially once if they're going back and forth and meeting with people. try to think of ways. It's not just perfunctory or all business. It's not long-winded, but it's there, we're taking the stories that the players have created, and especially if they get renowned or whatever. And again, there's going to be people that are fearful of them or whatever, but they can certainly crack jokes at their own expense, at the player's expense, or it may be something that was defeated. Guess, the fire dragon got cone of cold, right? I guess he's now an icicle, ain't he? Don't like that. Something like, again, what is it? What are the events of your world, and how? Because that's what townspeople would really do. We turn everything into a joke. We have things that are so horrible. It's too soon for that. You still can't make jokes about Lincoln's assassination, right? But a lot of things people do make jokes about. That's how we deal with them. All right, so remember, make your dialogue. Don't go too overboard on dialogue. Make it concise. Make it meaningful. But don't be just perfunctory. Maybe use some subtext or some indirect stuff. Have them be interested in the things they would be interested as NPCs, and add a little humor to it. Make the dialogue. You don't have to be a professional joke writer, but try to make it the way people really, banter with each other in real life. And again, a shout out to my Patreon supporters. Love you guys. Love creating content, maps and monsters and storylines and whatnot, and videos, really going in depth into some of these things. I'd love to hear your comments. If you like the video, please like and subscribe. And most importantly, my friends, keep playing an RPG game, keep creating interesting NPCs, and tell somebody else about it.